How about Joe Milton? Left off the list of most dynamic athletes at quarterback. That leads us to 4 downs, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Really? Not on the how many are on this list, Caleb? How many quarterbacks are on this list? And
11.
he's not one. Huh?
11.
11. 11. And he's not on the list. 4 downs. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Look at me, no glasses, no contacts, because I got LASIK. That's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. They're local. They've got individual vision centers as well that'll take care of your eyes, just an annual checkup. But if you need LASIK and you don't want to wear contacts and you don't want to wear glasses anymore, that's the way to go. Cataract surgery as well. And they're local. That means a lot. All right, 4 downs. First down is now. UCF quarterback John Rise Plumlee is the number 1 most dynamic athlete at quarterback in the nation. Okay. This guy's a pure runner. If we're going to talk about athletes, everybody's athletic now. There's not Mike Vick and Chris Winkie. There's not that variance of comparisons. Okay. So everybody can run around to some extent, but dynamic athlete at quarterback, I don't think Plumlee nearly as much as I think Joe Milton. And Plumlee's number 1. He's a running back that can throw at that position. I don't know if you've seen him play, Caleb, but he's almost not quarterback. I mean, he runs around a lot.
It's almost like Brad Crawford of 247 who did this, only based this on how fast the guys are. Not even like whether or not they're runners, but just their pure speed. Because John Rise Plumlee, yes, is a faster runner than Joe Milton, but Joe Milton's got a way bigger arm. And quite honestly, I think Joe Milton is a more effective runner because he's bigger. He can withstand more than John Rise Plumlee. So I don't get I don't get how you could think in any way outside of just speed, he's a better athlete than Milton, because he's not.
He doesn't have great hips as a runner. He's kind of like Cam Newton. He's a straight ahead runner. But that's because he's so big. I mean, in every single physical category, he would defeat Plumlee, except for maybe straight out speed, maybe a little bit of a wiggle that Plumlee might have that Milton doesn't.
Jaden Daniels. A fight, who wins?
What's that?
If they were in a fight, who wins? It's Milton every time.
Yeah, I would pay to see that, actually. Jaden Daniels, LSU number 2. And you're going to hear this comparison a lot from afar since they don't play each other like they did last year. But Jaden Daniels, if you only saw the Tennessee game, really came on throughout the year. He's actually a better runner, but still, I think there's a debate who's the most dynamic athlete. And we don't even have Joe Milton on the list, but I'm curious who you think is more dynamic, Daniels or Milton.
I still think Milton. I think Daniels, I do think Daniels might be the better quarterback this year, but I think Milton's a more dynamic athlete. I mean, you're right. He's a better runner, but that's relative. Again, like we're talking about, Joe Milton can withstand so much more contact than anybody on this list because of his size that I just don't think that, again, we're talking pure athlete, and arm strength should be factored into athlete. Now, it doesn't look like he factored that in at all in this, but if you factor in arm strength, running ability, size, physicality, speed, I don't see how any of these guys are better than Joe Milton, and that includes Jaden Daniels, who, again, probably only beats Milton out when it comes to speed, and that's still debatable.
Message board saying Jaden Daniels has yet to prove diddly squat to me. He's talented, but he's not nearly as good as Hooker, and he won't be as good as Milton could be. The key word is could. So what's the top end on these two guys? I think Joe Milton has a much higher ceiling, that we could agree with that. As of May 2023, Jaden Daniels scares me more as a natural runner. So you can't make a living at quarterback running over people. Joe Milton's going to be able to run over more people, but that's not going to last long term. So I'm going to take Jaden Daniels as maybe slightly more dynamic because I think he has instincts to take off and run, instincts that great quarterbacks like Bryce Young really didn't have. He didn't take off and run as often as he should have in his first year as a starter. Hendon Hooker had to fit into that. I think that's just more about playing in game time. So that was second down. Third down, Jordan Nix at Florida State and Bo Nix are number 3 and number 4 on most dynamic athletes respectively in the nation. Holy
You mean Jordan Travis at Florida State and then
Oh,
Bo Nix
sorry.
at
Yes,
Yeah.
but we got 2 Nixes, Jordan Travis and Bo Nix, excuse me.
You see, this is where the inconsistency shows in. Okay, Travis, again, if you're using the standard, if there's one standard and it comes down to speed, I get if you have Rice Plumlee, Daniels, and then Travis in your top 3. But then you go to Bo Nix at Oregon, who was at Auburn. And I mean, he's again, arm strength. He's not an athlete. Like, I remember Bo Nix, he was under pressure a lot. If he was under pressure, he wilted all the time. He wasn't that good in the pocket. So where is this coming from?
I don't get the Bo Nix thing. I don't get the Bo Nix thing. I think that Joe Milton is more dynamic than both of these guys. So that was third down. This leads to fourth down. And there are going to be a lot of these lists that come out. And I think Brad Crawford does a great job. But when you post these things and they're out, it's not exactly like the newspaper being on somebody's front porch step, but it is kind of like that because it's out. Fourth down. Is this just a flat out blatant omission? Just a mistake?
Yes.
I mean, I think it is too. I think it is. I think it's just, we'll try to get Brad on, but I think that he just put the list together and maybe left it off on purpose for a talking point for guys like us. But I think this is just a flat out oopsie.
I mean, the thing that led me to believe it was a mistake, I would have said maybe he was only looking at people who started last year, but then he had Jalen Milroe at 11, who started one game. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, this has got to be a mistake.
Josh Ward is going to write about, and he'll join us tomorrow. He's going to write about the best fan bases to be a part of right now. And we've got our teams picked out. We discussed it yesterday. There's an honorable mention. For the love of all that's holy, doesn't Joe Milton get an honorable mention here? So, I mean it's something.
It's 247 Sports. That is one of their biggest followings is Tennessee fans, right?
Well, it's not as big as the On 3, but yes, it's one of their bigger ones. Okay. I think that On 3 would probably have them 1, and then everybody else would be tier 4. They'd have Joe Milton tier 1, everybody else is tier 4, based off some of their reporting. Just being frank with you, they are all Vol, and that's fine, but that's not where you would ultimately go for your.
They're probably already comparing him to Joe Burrow and saying he could surpass Joe Burrow's 2019 season.
I think it was written that he's left Joe Burrow in the dust, and Cam Newton is crying over just watching spring practice tape. That's what I was told that the On 3 folks are saying, but they're doing a great job. I think this might be just a flat out omission, but I would easily have Joe Milton in the top half of that 11 that you mentioned. No question.
I'd have him number one.
Really?
I mean, who's more physically an athlete? Best athlete means most physically gifted. Who has more physical gifts? Just raw physical ability than Joe Milton.
Okay. All right. Jaden Daniels scares me more as a runner. When things break down, I haven't seen that consistently enough out of Joe Milton. And it's the same thing as last year. Well, Bryce Young. So I covered Alabama for Saturday Down South one year, and there were times where you want to keep your eyes downfield, but at some point you need to tuck and run. So his first year as a starter, which would have been 2021, there were times where he should have just tucked, ran, slid, pick up 8 yards, keep yourself ahead of the sticks. So I think Hendon Hooker struggled with that because that's something you develop during games. And Hendon Hooker ultimately became very good at that towards the last half of the season. And I think Joe Milton will as well. But to think that he's not going to do it with that kind of physical ability, I think is absurd.
See, I get if you're defending, you're more scared of Jaden Daniels as a runner. But if depending on the quarterback you have, you're also more scared if Jaden Daniels is running for you, because Jaden Daniels is more likely to get hurt than Joe Milton when he gets hit. And I say that, guys, Jaden Daniels to me is the better quarterback. We have the message guy who said that Jaden Daniels has something to prove and he could be as good as Milton. I don't get that. Jaden Daniels has proven way more than Milton has at the college level already. He just won the SEC West. Okay. So how are we going to sit there and say Daniels hasn't proven anything, but Milton has? So I think Daniels is a better.
I think the impression left by the Tennessee LSU game probably still sticks strong in Tennessee fans' minds. Jaden Daniels got better. If you watch football all day like you and I do, and not just the Tennessee game, not to say you guys on the message board don't, but some people don't. And I mean, Jaden Daniels was really good and got really better. And that game was a total fiasco disaster of the sun in their early start, sun in their eyes, opening kickoff, and then the turnover. It just got out of control really, really quick. So I don't think that's an indication that Jaden Daniels is forever an average or below average quarterback. But Tom leaves us with this: the moon still has a black eye from when Joe Milton hit it with a football. But as somebody within, just go ahead, Travis, get ready. But as somebody told me within Tennessee's program, it's great if you can throw it to the moon, but if you can't hit it, it doesn't really help. So he still has to prove that. And he still has to prove that to some people within the program to be consistently accurate.
What we're saying is, so far, Joe Milton is early 90s Randy Johnson before he learned control with his fastball.
Ooh, like it. Has Joe Milton ever killed a bird in flight with a ball?
That was when Randy Johnson got his control, though. To be fair, I was
he
a big
meant to hit the bird.
Yes, exactly. I was a big Mariners fan because Ken Griffey Jr. was my favorite player, and Randy Johnson was not a reliable starter for the Mariners. But I think he was throwing games to try to get traded. That's just me. I have some bitterness there.
He was not. That was one of the best teams to never win a championship, or the most exciting teams to kind of like the Orlando Magic when they had Shaq and Tracy McGrady.
Shaq and Penny.
I said, Shaq and Penny, excuse me.
That Mariners team with Griffey and A-Rod and Edgar Martinez and Jay Buhner.
Oh,
and I mean, Randy Johnson is your ace. Jamie Moyer was on that team.